All right. Whoa. Whoa. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm so excited that tonight we get to hear from Maria Williams. So let's welcome her as she comes on up. All righty. Well, so we all probably certainly know your husband. But we're excited to hear your story tonight. And so here, I feel like I'm far away from you. Yeah. I feel like I'm a little bit, there we go. So we're excited to hear your story. So, but just in case people, for whatever reason, don't know your husband and don't know your family, tell us who you are and tell us how long you've been going to Grace Union. Sorry, it's not on the list.
Well, my husband is Quinton.
Microphone.
Oh, sorry.
There you go.
Can you hear me? My husband is Quinton Williams, and I believe most of you know him. And I've been coming to Grace Union since 2011, so 7 years.
7 years.
This August, I think, because I was in Colombia. When we came from Colombia, we come to be part of Grace Union. So this year, I come back to Colombia for 8 years later, so 7 years.
That's right. And so you got 3 kids. One's off to college.
Yes.
Down in Joplin, and then 2 others.
Yeah, we have William, who is in Joplin, 19 years old, and Daniel, who is right now at the youth. He's 15 years old. He is in 9th grade. And our Elizabeth, she's 12 years old, and she is there are 3 blessings, but she's our surprise. Yeah, a wonderful surprise.
There you go. Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, let's just start kind of at the beginning. Tell us a little bit about your childhood. What role, was church important growing up, and kind of what role did faith play in your childhood? Tell us kind of about the early years of your life.
Yeah, I'm from Colombia, South America, and I grew in a little town called Sasaima, and I grew up with my grandmother. And for a reason, my mother said when I was 6 months, she had to bring me to my grandma because she was having a hard time with her second baby. My sister and I, we are a year apart. So that was the reason. And so I grew up with my grandma. And when I didn't have a grandpa, he passed away before I was born. And I lived with my uncle and my grandma. She went to church. And when she went we live in a little town far away from the big town, like the big town you go. It was like 2 hours, walking on the horses or mules. So when she bring me, she has to bring me in on a horse and stuff. And we have.
So did you say walking or horses or mules?
Yeah, because we don't have transportation. Like
they
have cars, but they were not to the farm. So she has some kind of a mule, especially when she rode, and so I go with her and. I was her companion. So when we have like the Easter, she go and we stay in a town for the weekend to the big celebration. So we spend the night in that little house close to the church for the farmer's house. So I love that place because I have a new food. It was something different. So I love to go to the ceremonies and everything. So we went to the Catholic church, and I went with my grandma, and that was it. But I don't remember listening or hear her prayer and stuff, but she bring me to church. During 9 years I lived with her, she passed when I was 29 years old.
Okay.
And so...
So church was kind of something that she would take you to, and...
Yeah, so like I would say twice a year, maybe,
So it wasn't like a weekly thing, it was just more kind of an occasional...
Yeah, it was like, I believe like when Jesus story, they go every year one time because... you live a little far away.
Right. Do we need to switch microphones? Oh, just hold it closer, they're saying.
Okay. Sorry.
Oh, there we go. All right, I'm like trying to get sign cues from here. So church was kind of something that you, a couple times a year, was like prayer, things like that? Was that, was there like a concept of God and Jesus in your childhood?
I believe yes, it was like the Catholic Church. You go and you had the Holy, St. Peter, all these things, and you go through these, things. But really, I didn't have that relationship. Like Jesus for me was more God. I knew there was a God, and I respect him and everything. But it wasn't like the big relationship. Yeah, that was little. I think I just go and see this, and go to something new. But I know there was a God. That's only I knew.
And so it's kind of just a distant.
Yes.
There's some God out there, but it wasn't something that impacted your.
Yeah, and I pray or talk or something like that. I don't have that big. No, not that concept.
Yeah. So as far as kind of your faith, did you really have like a faith in God, or was it just kind of you assume like I do good and good things happen, or?
I think I'm talking about my 9 years old. So at 9 years old, I think I just wanted to be with my grandma, and I was grandma's granddaughter, and I live in just with her and do what they asked me to do. And in a farm, I had to work in a farm and wake up early, pick up the coffee, do the stuff. So I do just my daily chores and go to school, and that was it.
Yeah.
But I didn't spend time during the week and we're going to pray or somebody pray about it. No, we don't. I don't remember doing that.
Yeah. So as far as teenage years, young adulthood, how did your faith start to evolve? Did God become more real to you as you got older, or?
Well, my grandma passed away when I was 9, and then I had to move to my parents' house, which I didn't have a relationship with them. For some reason, I didn't grow with them. They got more children. They get involved with their children. But I had to go with them, and it was a hard time for me because my brothers, they don't want an older sister come here and bother them and stuff like that. But after a year I come with them, I have an accident in my right eye. I scar my eye with a branch or something. I cut my eye. So I had to be removed again from my family, and I went to live in a city, 2 hours and a half in bus, my mother's sister, because they had to do a lot of surgeries to help to recover my right eye. Praise the Lord, my neighbor was ophthalmology, otherwise I would not have my right eye. But in that time, I would say my mother prayed for that, but I didn't know pray. My mother, when she saw that happen, she was, oh my God, she was so worried. And whenever I had the surgeries, and I had to stay with my auntie in the city, it was something new for me. So I was it was hard because, you try to establish a relationship with your parents, after my grandma was all I have for 9 years. And being with my auntie wasn't the best years. I call those hell. Yeah. Because my parents cannot visit me like every 3 months. But my mother thought that I was better there because my father is a good man, but when he trained in Sundays, he abused her. And I lived short time with him, and I saw how he abused her when he drunk. And Sundays he get drunk. And so she preferred us out than in a home. But at the same time, I was telling her I wasn't good there, but she didn't believe me. I couldn't tell her, but I was being abused sexually. They don't rape me, but it was a lot of touching inappropriately for years.
So how old were you when that was going on?
I was about 12, 13, 14.
And so was that before or after the eye injury?
After my eye.
After your eye injury.
It was when I was living with the family. I had to leave. They offered to take care of me with the good. It was my mother's sister.
And so what were you, like, what was going through your mind during that time? What were you thinking?
Well, that time, I remember I think I was in my 40s when the first time I have an accident, like my cousin, they were older than me, like 20s something. I was just 14, they were maybe 25. And my cousin, she bought a new bed and a mirror, full mirror. So I wanted to see how I look. So I stand up in the bed. I remember, I wanted to see how Maria looks. And they don't have a full mirror, and that bed broke. It was a brand new. And they treat me very bad. So it was like the end of the war. I didn't trust nobody because if I tell my other auntie something that she lived close to my auntie, she would tell her back, it aggravate everything. So I don't have nobody to trust. Yeah. So that day I remember I prayed to God. That was the first time that I was doing this. I remember that I prayed. And I tied the bed with a rod. And there was one of the cousins who used to come and sit in the bed, like in the area, and I said, Lord, don't let her to come today to see the church. Like, I gave him all the instructions to follow. He did exactly I prayed for. So that cousin never come to that room. So we have a guest that week that my auntie loved her very much. She used to come after she was doing painting or taking a painting class or something like that. And she come directly to the room. So I said, Lord, when she come back, I had to untie the bed, pick up the rug, and she needs to sit down, and they would think that she broke the bed. So
I was thinking.
yeah. So there is something Elizabeth very creative.
Yeah. I wonder where Elizabeth gets it from now.
And all of this, because at that point you are very, trusting nobody, you don't know even what to do. I pray a lot. I was watching dishes, because that was my job, I watched dishes sometimes to 11, I wake up 4 a.m., do. I was a slave, working, and it was terrible. But I don't care about working. I was bad about the abuse and everything. So that lady came. I took the rug. God helped me because nobody saw me when I did that. I put the rug, and I was in the kitchen, and I asked, Lord, I said, when that lady came and brought everything sound like that, and everybody ran to see her, the bed broken, blah, blah, blah. And I said, what are we waiting to happen next? And yes, they said, maybe that's a new bed. There was bad bed, blah, blah, blah. And then I said, thank you, God. But he did exactly, I prayed.
Right.
But from that, I didn't learn. I couldn't pray more about everything, but I didn't get it. I didn't get that he answered those prayers. But then later on, my younger cousin, asked my auntie to send me to her to help her in her town. There was like 7 hours in bus or something. My auntie sent me many times to her daughter to bring something and stay with her in vacation and stuff like that. Recommend me to the bus driver. Can you imagine? Could it happen many things to me? Yeah. But this got nothing happened to me. So my cousin husband said, you don't came here to work this time, Maria. You came because I wanted to have a vacation for your auntie. I know how she treats you. And that helped me to kind of go back to say, find a little freedom. Yeah. And so I came back. But then Kim told me, my daddy called, and they say I wasn't there, and I was there. And he wanted me to bring me to vacation at my house. And I remember that Jesus picture they have in one window, that little picture of apparently God. And I came and said, Lord, where are you? I said, what is the God who loved? Who I killed to what's happening to me? My grandma died. I have the accident. I go through so many things. And I just remember talking with him that time. Finally, I was able to go to the farm to my father. And my mother, my auntie, asked me to promise her that I will not tell my parents or my father, because my mother didn't. I didn't tell her. She didn't even believe me. I didn't tell that I was abused. I don't know what she do, but I will never tell my daddy that, because he would kill. My daddy would kill. So I came to the farm, and I went to my uncle when I was raised, my uncle, and he was going to bring his daughter. I said, no, look at what is happening to me. I told him about abuse, physical, and all the stuff, but I don't tell the rest. And my brother was 7 years old. He went with me. He came before me. We walked like an hour and a half. So he come before, and he tell my daddy everything. When I come, my daddy said, is that true? I said, yes. And he told my mother, tomorrow you pack and you bring her back home. And he told my auntie, I said, what you do to my daughter? So I go back home again. And my daddy, in the opportunity, he will always wake up, and he sit in a bed, and he pray. All the prayers, that he pray for it. He tell us before go bed, are you going to sleep like animals? Pray. Pray to God. Give thanks to him. And I pray over and over what I know. Pray, and he's still praying. So we close the eyes and keep on saying the same thing until we, Yeah. But he bring us to church more frequently. We live closer to the town. And he said, when he was like the word of the Bible, the evangelic, or read the word of the Bible, he said, now it's time to pay attention. This is the most important thing. So, yes, we try to pay attention, but I still not got it, still okay. And so he always asks us to pay attention and everything, but he's still acting the same. But during the week, he's a good father. But until he was with alcohol, he lost it. But then I was having problem again with my eyes, and I was in the 15, 16, and so I had to go back to the city. And so my mother found somebody when I was in high school. They know me, and I was so nervous because the experience I have. It seemed like my mother don't want me at home. I didn't like my mother. I was so disappointed because I thought, you don't have me when I was a child, and you always put me away.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I thought my daddy was the only one, even though they seemed like my daddy was the one who rejected me and everything, but at the end, he was the one who supported me. Well, I told my daddy, you promise me that you go, because my mother will not bring me home. So I went to this lady and stayed with her, and I studied half day. And half day I stayed with them and helped them. The things were different. And she was very kind. She helped me to get over it because I stayed 1 year only with my daddy.
Yeah.
And I go back, I still was healing from all this truth that I didn't talk that much. So I came with this lady. She didn't went to church, but she sent me to church. She wanted me to go to church. Yeah. So I go by myself to church. And, but I still didn't have the relationship with God. Like, I know there was a guy.
So church was still just kind of going through the motions.
Yeah,
it was still
the same.
Yeah.
And so that was in my high school. And in college, I think was when I been a foster kid. I don't grow with my parents. So I've been like by myself, house to house to house.
Yeah.
So then I went to college, and I worked 3 jobs, and I started studying biology and chemistry in a private university, but I couldn't make the appointments, and I cannot be in a study field, so I had to drop it. So I went to the college, community college. And, well, excuse me.
No, you're good. You're good.
This lady, when I lived with, I was going to study veterinarian because that was something that maybe I like it. But she said, you are good in serving, Maria. Hotel administration will be good for you. And I said, I don't like cooking. I don't like that. She said, but there is another branches, blah, blah, blah. I said, and so when I went to register, the veterinarian were closed. The only one who was open was hotel administration, and I'd be wasting already 2 years. So I wanted to do something. So I registered. Then I had to do interview and test, and that was hard to pass. I passed everything. So I finished hotel administration. And my relationship with the Lord still was, I went to some new churches. Mm-hmm. I started reading the Bible, but I was yes and no. You know, I was hot and cold. I never gave the tithes. I was not faithful. I wasn't that strong. I always was kind of try to study, try to be focused. My focus was try to study. Always I like to study. But I respect the Lord, but I didn't respect him enough. So I didn't follow him that much.
Did you at any? So you have your grandmother pass away when you were 9. You have the eye injury. You were abused. You kind of felt like you were passed from family to family. At any point, did you blame God? Were you mad at God at any point?
Yes, I thought he's God who loved me so much. Why he let me happen with me since I was born? Like, yeah. Apparently the story was that my father rejected me because my father is brown. My mother is white and blue eyes. And I was born very white with no hair. My mother said I was no hair in my hair. And my daddy, my auntie said that he said, this is not my daughter. Mm-hmm. He rejected me apparently. But apparently when he sent for her, I don't remember, maybe he did in his anger. But so far he's been. So I talked with him later on. I talked with him. I told him, why did you reject me? He said, never know. And I said, well, if you reject me, I don't need to live with you, and I don't need to work for you, and you don't need to discipline. Yeah. So I was just a little, and things got clarified, and he apologized with me. But yes, I thought God has to do with that. I think I said, how can God do those things? You know, how can you think
how
you
can
are
a good
born
God let these
and
things
all these
happen?
Things happen?
Yeah.
That's what always I thought, like, yes. So
how did you see kind of your life unfolding? What kind of goals did you have? What did you see the adult Maria looking like when you were a child and when you were kind of into high school and college? At that point in your life, what goals did you have? What did you want to do?
I think I like to study. I remember my daddy bought a sewing machine. And in the town, there were people who sew for the people or cook. So I tell him, I do not touch the machine. I don't want it to be the zone for everybody here in the little town. So I have a big dream, I don't know what, but I want it not to be the sewing machine. So I never touch the machine. I never. Yeah. I wish I did today, but I didn't. I was a little stubborn. Yeah. And so, my dream was study. And my daddy also, thanks God, support us to study, and he always encourages us to go ahead. And that's what I finished hotel administration. Yeah. And then I have a job, but I wasn't like with God and with no God. I didn't have a relationship with Jesus at all. So then, because of that, I met Quinton in a hotel when I was working.
That's what I was going to say. So now I have the question that everyone wants to know the answer to. Quinton. So tell us about how you met Quinton and how you knew that he was the one you were going to marry.
Well, I told my father.
Or are you still trying to figure that answer out?
I told my daddy a year before I met Quinton, I'm not going to be married because the men are faithful. And I'm not going to be sharing my husband with nobody. That's not me, and I'm not going to do this. So don't expect me to be married or stuff like that. And so I was working in a hotel, a 5-star, one of the best hotels. And I was starting to take in another classes because I'm going to have a new position as a coordinator of beverage and food. So, you see, I was trying to scale in my career and everything. Then, January 31st, there was the barman come. He left early, and he said, well, I'm leaving. Can you please, I was closing the restaurant that night. So he said, can you please? I said, wait, you can leave right now. It's too early. And there was these 2 gentlemen. But I cannot go and say, here is your bill. In a hotel we work, we not can do that. You have to good evening, how can I help you? There is something you need, blah, blah, blah. And so I said, good evening. And Quinton was sitting down in the left and the other gentleman on the right. So Quinton just sit down like, and he started talking to me, saying that I was beautiful, blah, blah, blah. And I saw...
He started talking to you. Yeah. Imagine that.
In English, and I saw 2 beers, and I said, they are just drunk. I'm not going to listen, but I had to be polite. And so, so I said, thank you so much in Spanish. And the other gentleman traduced everything what he says. And oh my God, he says too much. I say, okay, I believe I gave purple a little bit because all these words. And so they ordered ice cream with something. So I said, and he ordered some like streams. At that point, I said, oh God, what I open my mouth now. So the chef get so upset with me, but I said, we are selling, we need to sell. So please do that, what I have. So they had to do it. And finally, I can pass the bill. And he say, I don't see this man next day. It was Sunday afternoon. So I say, they leave tomorrow. Most of the guests normally leave that evening, early morning, or in the weekend. No, he stayed. So when I came in the afternoon, my friend said, that gentleman is looking for you. Since 4, I came at 6. And I said, okay, is the gentleman the same? Oh, God, I thought he left. And so he started taking pictures of me, and that was no permit. I said, I'm going to lose my job for him. So I said, stop taking pictures. Like, don't do it. And so he kept it there. Then he stayed for dinner, and he asked me, I wanted to invite you to dinner. And he keep it. So I was kind of getting annoyed. So I said, and my friend said, Maria, why you not give him a chance? I said, you are going to him. Who knows who he is? And I like, no. I'm so nervous about that. And they say, you just say yes. We go with you. You stay in a hotel in front of us, and we take care of you.
So you had an exit plan just in case things... Yeah, okay, right, yeah. All right.
So, and he insists so much. I say, okay. But I thought he may be deceased. Okay, that was January 1st, so he has to go to Bucaramanga, and he will come back in February 4. So maybe he may not come back. So then my friend, it was a 4, the appointment, I think it was a 5. But before that, he wanted us to meet a little bit. When I saw that gentleman so tall, I was so little. And he started talking and talking, and I didn't understand nothing. So I'm like, oh my God. I was like, no. So then I said, we are lost. So he tried to, like, say, he decided to return back, and he was showing me like $50. And I thought, I said, what he's thinking? I showed him, like, I have money too, and only his money. So I said, I don't know. I thought he was thinking something else. But then he decided to keep on walking. and we keep on walking. Well, I don't know why he offered me money.
That's a first for a legitimate experience. Whew. All right, go ahead.
And then we went to the restaurant. There was a girl selling roses. And he bought me a rosy and gave it to me. And I remember when I was very young and close to after my grandma died, and I was with my father, and my mother had roses. And I said, whenever give me a rosy, it's going to be very special to me. So that rosy, remembered that time. But it was there, and he gave me the rose, and then we went, and I remember, watch out, don't leave drinks when you go in the restaurant, don't let your purse, nothing. They can put something in your beverage. So all of these things. Yeah, and so.
Where is he at? Why is he not here?
But I believe he was taking care of himself too, because that was the time when we have, the narcotics, guerrillas, everything. So then I noticed later he was protecting himself too. But then we asked about what was his birthday. We know about our birthdays.
Right.
And that was almost it all this time. Then, bye. And I went to take my bus, and I let him close to the hotel because I don't want he come, get lost or nothing, because they will be me in jail. So then I was getting close to the street when I feel the hand in my shoulder. I almost hit him. That was Quinton. Why he was following me? Like, that was terrible. Like, oh God, that was terrible. I said, this person, what are you going to do to this man? I was nervous. Something happened with him. And I said, you need to go. And I bring him back again, make sure he's in the hotel, and I go back. I said, this is terrible. So I was kind of nervous about this, and because the hotel, and, he's American, and something happened with this man, I will be in jail, my family, everybody.
Yeah.
So then, okay, he said, we agreed that we're going to meet for a dinner before he left to celebrate my birthday, because he left February 4, my birthday was February 5th. So I said, okay. So then I called at the hotel that afternoon, and he wasn't in a hotel. So I was leaving the chef, because it was close to the hotel. My parents live very far away, and I was just making to pay the transportation. So I moved with her like a year before. But I told him that I'm living with my parents. So then I call, and he's not there. He maybe not come back. And I say, I'm going to waste my money and my time. I'm a taxi. So she said, you better go. It's not in you. Go, Maria. And I said, okay. So I took a taxi. I was going to be late. I was 40 minutes late. And he was sitting down in that little park with tie, so elegant, waiting for me. I was exposing him, he there in the middle or somewhere. I feel so bad. And I was like, do I go or I not go? And I said, oh my God. I had to put my face, and I laid the taxi, and I said, I'm here, and he's like, oh, it's late. And okay. And then we went And so we went to the restaurant, a typical restaurant, and I noticed he was showing the direction. So there was the same restaurant they were before. So I noticed he was taking care of himself too. So, okay, we went to the restaurant, and I remember he spilled the wine. He still do that. And we talked, and he gave me information, and we just, and we cannot become a good friends in the moment, big hug, big kiss, and that's it. The next day, he gave me a cheer to say bye, big hug, and give me a cheer of one of the football something going on in that year. It was 1999.
Yeah.
So that's why I meet Quinton, and then Quinton keep on calling me since this day, every day. Every day he called me, and I, with the dictionary, and we could speak like 3 lines in only 3 hours.
So at what point did you know that you were going to marry him?
Well, when he came in April to meet my parents, I noticed one thing, that he has a Bible with him. That was a big thing. Second, I noticed when he sent me a picture of his parents to the hotel, a big envelope came to the hotel with picture of his parents, all the stuff. He connected me with his sister-in-law, who is from Mexico, and she told me about everything about him. And he wanted to, I know about him and everything, so he tried to put me in contact with everybody. And she said, he came the day Maria, he just not talk about Maria, Maria, Maria everywhere. And so he came in April, and I noticed that he loved his parents, and I noticed he loved God. And the big deal was when he met my parents. My parents are farmers. So I went to my parents because he was coming in April, and I decided that 2 weeks before, I said, Father, you need to come to the city and to meet this friend of mine. And he started giving me this sermon telling me that I'm going to be married, blah, blah, blah. I said, Father, it's a friend. I'm not going to get married. But he told me about those things. In a moment, I think my daddy kind of knew something that I didn't know. But God spoke in his heart. And so Quinton came. We met in my sister's house, and my family met there. And we had breakfast, and Quinton came with a ring. He asked me to be his wife. Wow. And I like, and I told my daddy looked at me, and my daddy said, Maria, this is your decision. After he was so jealous, don't let his boyfriend and stuff, he make a big deal, and everything. He gave me to me all. And I said, And then my daddy said, this man look good. I don't speak the language, but what I see a good person. And so Quinton asked permission to we spend time together for a week to know more together. He wanted me to marry right now, but we couldn't marry like that in Catholic Church. So then we get engaged, and we finally get married in June the 26th. It was a process.
So so you got married?
Oh, but before he came to April, that's when I talked with God. I went to a Catholic church around before noon, and I went and I talked with God. I said, Lord, you know me, you know Quinton, this gentleman. He was coming the second trip. I say, I could be a bad woman, he could be a bad man too. But we are in the same position. You know us, if he's a good man and I'm a good woman for him, let him come. So that was my thing with the Lord. That was kind of the first time I spoke with God, like to answer something. Yeah. So when he was coming in April, my brother-in-law, my sister, every time with a picture that I have, to look up, because they didn't know him, right. And I almost forgot about him. And so the Venezuelan airplane came first, so it was 11 already, 11, so it's passing the time that he's supposed to come. I said, maybe he's not coming. So then my brother said, that's the Venezuelan, that's where they are little. We're looking for a tall man, it's not Americans. So later on, the American plane came, and finally, there was Quinton coming. And he said, that's the man, Maria, that's the man, he's here. I'm like, yes, he's here. So that was the start of our, God said, yes, he's here. Yeah. And he came with a ring anyhow.
So you meet Quinton, you get married, you start having kids and kind of building a family. How did your faith get you through that stage of, you're now a parent, Quinton's got a lot of travel stuff that he does, you're in a new country. How did your faith impact you during that time?
My relationship with the Lord started thanks to Quinton, Even though he speaks English, I didn't speak English. He went to church. We went to Assemblies of God in the 40, the church out there. He went out there. I go with him. I was his wife. I follow him everywhere. and God put me in this situation. In Colombia, I was so independent. I was my own thing. I was me, depend on myself. I take care of my parents and everything. But here, I depend on Quinton. I didn't speak the language, nothing. So I started, when Quinton left, at the beginning we go travel a lot, but then I get pregnant, so I couldn't travel. So then he left me alone. I was so lonely. I didn't speak the language. I don't have no friends. And I get so lost in that little neighborhood. We live in Chesterfield. And then I talked with the Lord that night. I said, Lord, did you bring me here? Because I asked his permission. So, you bring me here in these 4 walls to stay here, just like that? And I was just arguing with him. But then I said, yes, I'm a sinner. You cannot talk with me, but you can send an angel, because I did saw an angel when I was 9 years old. I was having a hard time when my father brought me to a farm. We supposed to cook at 9 years old. I didn't know how to cook. And he brought me to his farm, other farm, to cook for his employee. And so I didn't know how to cook, but I tried to do what I supposed to. I did the soup, and I cooked the plantains. But when I was going to bring them when they were a little, suppose 20 minutes, I was just leaving home, and I fell, and that soup flew away. And that was all we had, because I brought that from the other farm. Mm-hmm. And I was so nervous about this father that I don't know. I was so nervous because I was afraid of him. And I was so devastated.
Yeah.
I went there in me. I said, oh, that was something. And that moment, there was a big tree out there in the right, big green tree. There was a creature, a white creature coming down to the tree. It made a noise that something like gave me the strength to stand up. Mm-hmm. I see it, and it go away into the tree. I go back somehow. I don't know. I put more water in that little soup that was left. And I trust, and I went with that food. And I hope that I not fell again.
Yeah.
And my daddy never complained about it. He liked the food. So that's the first time I saw an angel. Yeah. A real one. So that's what I tell him. Send an angel. Say something with me. What do you want for me in this country? I was so depressed. The next day, I decided to write down the direction in a paper and go outside and follow the next neighbor. But she started speaking English, but I started to follow her. And she said, I have a friend who speaks Spanish and English. And I hear the word Spanish. I say, I have to follow her. So I follow her. And that's where my 2 angels, Linda and Nellie. Nellie, they commend their life to Jesus after she saw what God has done to me 7 years later. And she started speaking with me, be my friend and everything, walk with me. So I found 2 angels. And Quinton brought me to church. I started learning English with the Bible. Then Quinton decided he was a sponge in church, and pastor, they want to make a church, build a church here in Fenton, mm-hmm. So we were doing a service in Rockwell School. Right. So Quinton and I, we get involved in teaching, and I don't know how, but I have a week to prepare those lessons. I tried to follow. I was learning English and learning the Lord at the same time. And we have a little William, but I was stretching, growing in my relationship with the Lord. That's how it happened in one day. It happened 2 years. I still was thinking about it. And then we were ministering the youth. So I was very involved, and I was meeting with the pastor and all these pastors and stuff. I say, how can I sit down in here? I didn't understand. I say, and later on, it's like, I was so important in the God's kingdom, but who am I to be sitting down in there? But I grew in my relationship with the Lord like that. And thanks to our pastor, Dan, I learned so much. And I remember one night when we were a small group, I went to small groups and everything. And I learned to drive. I remember with that Tahoe driving from Chesterfield to Fenton, and I prayed all the time because, oh God, the Lord has so many stories about Maria. And when it rains, and I don't know how to drive this big animal, and I was like in darkness, and I said, Lord, I need lighting, and he put lighting and lighting. It was amazing, but I wanted to be in this small group, but being in there, it was so difficult for me. It was because I was just learning how to drive. Yeah. So
brand new culture, brand new language, brand new faith.
It was very difficult.
So what would you say, kind of looking back on your life, what do you feel like God has taught you?
Well, that was what I'm going to tell you. So I was in a small group, and I asked Pastor Dan, I say, he couldn't understand what I said. Quinton had to try to open his eye like that. I said, why do God separate me from my family? Because that was what happened. Yeah. I was coming to my family, and then I scarred my eye. I go back to my family, and then something happened. I go back to Miss Cecilia. And then he brought Quinton to bring me to America. You know? So it wasn't my family. It was he to try to do something. So Pastor said this. He said, because if he led you with your family, you will not know him. You will not have the relationship you have with him. at that moment, I said, all this sacrifice for that? Like all this suffer for that? I really don't like that in that moment. But later on, when my relationship with him grew up, I feel sorry what I said. Because then the pain is like today I'm saying it and I'm crying, but that pain is nothing for me now.
Yeah.
It's like, I feel good. I didn't even care for what happened. I forget the people. I'm so thankful that I know the Lord right now. But and he didn't mean it to.
Yeah.
Because later on, when I was praying with him, I have a verse here. What is that number? I forgot my verse.
Was it on a different page?
Sorry. I was reading my Bible, and in Isaiah 54, he spoke to me. And here it says, Isaiah 54, and it says, the future glory of Zion. And I wanted you to read, start here, because it's a long chapter,
yeah.
And here is when I feel when he started speaking to me.
It says, for a brief moment I abandon you, but with deep compassion I will bring you back.
You can keep reading a little bit more.
In a surge of anger I hid my face from you for a moment, but with everlasting kindness I will have compassion on you, says the Lord, your Redeemer. To me this is like the days of Noah, when I swore that the waters of Noah would never again cover the earth. So now I have sworn not to be angry with you, never to rebuke you again. Though the mountains be shaken and the hills be removed, yet my unfailing love for you will not be shaken, nor my covenant of peace be removed, says the Lord, who has compassion on you. Afflicted city, lashed by storms and not comforted, I will rebuild you with stones of turquoise, your foundations with lapis lazuli. I will make your battlements of rubies, your gates of sparkling jewels, and all your walls of precious stones. All your children will be taught by the Lord, and great will be their peace. Amen.
That when I was reading this verse, I feel that he said, it wasn't me, Maria. It wasn't me. I don't want it to happen to you. And everything changed that moment. It was like feeling it in my back. He was talking to me, so I was crying and crying and crying. I feel his presence. I never forgot this peace. Never forgot there was me a new beginning. Like he said, I'm sorry, I have been. It wasn't me. And that's when the Lord spoke to me after. And I was glad that he spoke. And I believe he has spoken to some of you in some place, in some area, say something to you. He spoke different to, he speaks in every way different to each of us. And so, yes.
So what advice, kind of the last question as we wrap up here, what advice would you give to someone that is maybe kind of on the front end of what God has taken you through? Maybe somebody that's going through abuse now, or maybe somebody that is feeling like they've been, given up on by their family. So somebody that's kind of in the midst of that right now, what advice would you give to them?
My advice is that if they hear the Lord is spoke to him, let him know her feelings. Be who you are and tell him how you feeling, and ask him to help you. He will be, look, I thought he never listened to me when I talked with him, where are you? But he listened to me. And I couldn't hear him. When I prayed that day, that he fixed all this bed and make it all, I couldn't grab that from that. I couldn't learn how to pray, and, but he didn't got it. Then when the angel came, I didn't got it yet. I didn't got the message. Maybe he want me to have those little, moments to later on remember. If I put my life together, I say he was working on me all the time. English, I haven't liked English at all. I failed English in 8th grade. I failed English at college. I was kicking out college because of English. But I go back because I fight for that. But looking that, God want me to meet Quinton and be in this country. I wish he speak differently. But looking, like, oh, God, That was scary, Mary, with Quinton, because the country and everything. I've been battling a lot with this English, and I'm still battling. But you know what? I wanted to speak better because I wanted to communicate what's the Lord whenever I wanted to talk about Him. But apparently He wanted me to talk like that because people kind of more attend to me, so listen more. Like they had to be more attention to me. So I think He wanted me to keep at this kind of English like that because I've been studying a lot. But my suggestion also, stay busy. Stay busy. Don't blame people or whoever. Our enemies are not people. Our enemy is Satan. Yeah. He's our big enemy. And he wanted to make us dirty before we have a relationship with the Lord, to blame God and say He no love us. But God doesn't have to do with this. Even our families have to do with this. So just, our enemy is not humans. Our enemy is not God. Our enemy is only one, Satan. And he can use anybody to hurt us, to try to, we reject God. So stay with the Lord, and God is not our enemy. He's our friend, and He loves us very much. And He never wants us to hurt us. It's not His plan.
Well, and one of the things that it just brings to mind is where the Scripture says, "I work all things together for your good." Even things that it might not make any sense. You might be hurt in the process, but God can work it all together for His good, for His glory, for your good. And I heard a pastor say one time that when we're in the middle of trials and when we're in the middle of struggles and in the pits of things, we hear that and we think, how in the world can that be? And the only reason why we ask that question is because we don't see how the story ends yet. It's not until we look back, oftentimes, that we see, oh, that's how that was all working together. Yeah. So anything final you want to share with us? Any last parting words in the however much time we got left?
Well, I say pray all the time. Pray all of the time for your kids, for everything. Come to the Lord first. Ask Him, bring Him whenever you have. Don't try to pretend. Just say what you had to say. I come with Him, and then I relate with David. After I read, I thought everybody in the Bible was holy. I thought nobody have a sin in there. Until I started reading, I say, oh my God, they are not us. And David is one of my favorites because I was speaking to the Lord kind of like that. I remember that day, and sometimes I come and say, Lord, forgive me for being mean and stuff. Yes, He don't mean that I have a hard time. He don't mean that. Yeah. It wasn't His, but we are in a sin war, and Satan is a big enemy, and He maybe knew somehow that God has a plan for me, and He say, these children will learn from the Lord and thank the Lord. They are my William, Danny, and Elizabeth involved in the church, and I'm praying, and I know God has a plan for them.
Absolutely.
And so just trust in these big promises here.
Awesome.
And also I wanted to talk about my other favorite verse, that is when I Lord it, because when He promised here, but that don't mean I still have hard times, like you say, our wedding, Quinton travels a lot, and I stay home. I learned who is my protector is God. He's my husband, He's my father, He's my best friend, He's everything for me now. And He helped me to grow because I wasn't very, I'm very, how can you say, very nervous. I do something and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I
Anxious.
more, So He gave me the peace. He healed me from the anxiety. I used to, because all the stress I have, coming to America, and I believe what happened in the past come back. So I have anxiety. He healed me from anxiety. I find peace in the Lord. But one is this, my favorite verse is in Matthew 11:28. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. He said for your souls, not for our bodies. I didn't get that later on. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. So, yes, I come to Him when I have any struggle, family, my kids. Sometimes you don't know even how to answer your teenager. They are having hard battles out there and you don't know what to do. I come to him in tears and cry. And the next day, he filled me and everything. I just come to him, Jesus, I'm full. I need and read this and say this and Lord, and come to you. And I cry to him, and he's there. I don't have a father close or mother, and I don't want to run to my father-in-law telling my problems. And he has been my counselor and everything. And I don't say that our lives are perfect. Quinton and I sometimes struggle. And yes, I tell Quinton, your mother has to pray. She was a warrior prayer. She pray. I said, she prays so much because God, if I knew a little bit more, Quinton, I have the opportunity to know, I may maybe not marry him. Yeah, I maybe not marry him, but God put everything so quickly. He make it. So when I have problems with my husband, I say, Lord, I know that you don't make a mistakes. I need help in here. So I say, your son is not behaving. I say, I am not holy. Somebody's not doing right.
Does the Lord say to you, I know. I know. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Let's give her a hand. That was just fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing. Here, I'll take your microphone.
Thank you so much.
Cool, thank you. You know, one of the things that Maria said tonight, and that one of the first conversations that I had with Maria, she said something to me that was just kind of something in passing, and she said it tonight in passing, but it's profound. And she said that she didn't hear the Lord. She couldn't hear the Lord during that time. And oftentimes what we say is that when we're struggling with something, God's not speaking. But notice that she said, I can't hear the Lord. And the profound truth in that is that God is always speaking. God's always talking to you. God always wants to impact your life. Whether or not you hear it is on you. So I appreciate Maria and Quentin. Just as much as I give them a hard time, I love these guys. So let's pray real quick, and then we'll go ahead and dismiss. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for tonight. God, thank you for the testimony that we heard tonight. Thank you for the story that you have, your hand of covering and grace and guidance has been on Maria's life. And God, we thank you that now we get to be a part of the story. God, I pray that those of us that are here tonight, God, as you're coming tonight, as we have struggles and burdens and we're going through the midst of it, God, I pray that the story that we heard tonight can impact us, and that we'll submit our burdens to you, God, and that we'll lay things at your feet, and that we will claim your word, and that we will pray all of these things that we heard about tonight. God, I pray that there won't just be things that we heard and we liked, but God, that there'll be things that impact our lifestyle, and God, that we will grow deeper and closer to you because of that, God. And we give you all the glory, and we thank you, and we ask all this in your Son's name. Amen. Real quick housekeeping announcement. Next week, we are starting our small group portion of the Wednesday experience. So we will have 6 weeks of small groups. We will have a women's small group, a men's small group that is entitled Knuckleheads. And we'll let you guess which pastor is teaching that one. And then we're going to have and then just a general Bible study group to where we'll be studying different characters of the Bible. We'll have a different character each week. So women's group, men's group, and then an adult Bible study. 6 weeks of that, and then we come back right before the Wednesday before Easter for a night of worship, just to kind of round things out. So we're excited, and be sure to be here next week for small groups. Thanks so much.